Ladies and gentlemen, hit subscribe to this channel right now. Go to H.A. Goodman's other channel right after this. I have uploads on that channel immediately after the live streams on H.A. Goodman. Hit subscribe to my super chat. Your support is so greatly appreciated. 2026 is going to be awesome. Politico, House Oversight, GOP threatens to hold Clintons in contempt 17 hours ago. This is breaking news. New York Post, Bill and Hillary Clinton face contempt of Congress, which, according to Democrats, and you saw Peter Navarro and you saw Steve Bannon, they had to experience jail time. So this is something that Democrats turned into an offense that leads to jail. Generally, prior to the past couple of years, well, the Clintons did this with the email investigation. They never showed up to Congress, and there was never even the possibility, really, that anyone would go to jail. Not true anymore. Washington Examiner, Oversight Committee threatens Clintons with contempt if they don't show up. This is 22 hours ago. So you have all of this taking place. They do not want to testify regarding Jeffrey Epp. We'll get to Minnesota and what's taking place there. Hit subscribe. Check this out. This is huge.
The White House is hiding Epstein files. We're learning tonight from ABC News that the DOJ is mulling the release of the transcript of its interview with Epstein, a series of subpoenas in the matter, and the recipients are familiar figures. Here to discuss is House Oversight Chair James Comer. Congressman, is the Oversight Committee prepared to enter into a legal battle with the DOJ over the Epstein files? You guys want the Clintons to tell us what they know about this, and many others. We'll put up the list again so everyone can see it.
Yeah, we're going to do what we said we would do, and what I think the American people want. We're going to get the truth to the American people. I don't think we'll have to put up a fight with the Department of Justice because President Trump has said he's going to release the Epstein files. I take him at his word. Our House Oversight Committee had a subcommittee meeting the last week in August when we were in Washington, and they voted in a bipartisan manner not only to subpoena the Epstein files, but also to subpoena a whole list of people that were supposedly involved in some form or fashion with the Epstein investigation, including 6 former attorneys general, as well as, of course, Bill and Hillary Clinton. So we're serious about this. The media has tried to make it out that Republicans didn't want to get to the bottom of this. The Republicans didn't want to be transparent. I can assure you Republicans want transparency more than Democrats, and we're going to do our job. We're going to provide oversight, and I think that we've got an administration that wants to be transparent. So I'm anxious to get started with this, and hopefully we'll be bringing people in very soon to.
This is a Democratic Party scandal. Okay, Jeffrey Epp gave Hillary Clinton $22,000. He visited President Clinton when he was president numerous times, along with Maxwell. Jeffrey Epp gave $22,000 to Chuck Schumer. He was literally texting a Democratic congresswoman in real time in 2019 or 2018 during a congressional testimony of Michael Cohen, literally texting her. We can go on forever. He gave $139,000 over the years by one estimate. He gave over 90% of his donations to the Democratic Party. And New York Democrats for years couldn't find evidence to indict Jeffrey Epp. But of course, they convicted Trump on, by the way, a conviction that'll be overturned by the Supreme Court. President Trump wins 94% of Supreme Court cases because his political opponents are routinely on the wrong side of history and the Constitution. But anyway, let's continue. Jeffrey Epp was a Democratic donor. He wasn't a Republican donor. He wasn't a Trump Republican donor. And he was on record numerous times as saying he despised Trump. Look at all the people that don't like Trump. Oh, look at all the Democratic donors. You can look, I mean, a crypto Ponzi scheme, a Hollywood director, producer that was disgraced years back. Now you have Jeffrey Epp. Anyway, let's continue.
To depose them and interview them.
Well, the Clintons aren't going to be deposed. I mean, they're going to fight this till the last last man standing here. I mean, if you don't think federal subpoena of Hillary Clinton's going to matter, I mean, she bleached bitter her blackberries or had her staff do it.
Well, it's going to be difficult. There have been two presidents in the last century that have been subpoenaed by Congress. I believe that was Harry Truman and Donald Trump, and neither ended up testifying in front of Congress. But we're going to do everything we can. This is different because this subpoena was the direct result of a committee vote, and it was a bipartisan committee vote. The Democrats made a motion in the Oversight subcommittee to subpoena the Epstein documents, and then Scott Perry from Pennsylvania, a good Republican member, he amended their motion to include subpoenaing the Clintons as well as all the attorneys general who were involved in the Epstein investigation, and the Democrats voted for it. I don't know that they realized what they voted for, but they voted for a subpoena for the Clintons, and because it was voted on by Congress in a bipartisan manner, I think that'll have good standing in court.
So like a moth to a flame, the way Democrats have viewed politics the past 10 years is simply throw as much mud as possible, don't really stand for any legislation. They despise ICE, but they don't want to defund ICE. They want to perhaps reduce the budget for ICE, but not defund it. They just want to create as much hysteria and mania as possible, and we saw what took place in Minnesota. No Medicare for all single-payer bill. No, they're not touching a Green New Deal. Nothing that they claim to care for, pontificate, preach about, do they really want to implement into legislation. They govern through media. They govern through an apoplectic, morally superior, hysterical, highly educated, quote-unquote expert view of politics and the world. Okay, we have the most unintelligent intelligentsia of all time. It's fine to be an atheist, right? It's great, whatever. I believe in God. You might believe in God and a religion or a God or an afterlife. But let's say, for example, you're this atheist. Well, if you replaced blind allegiance, or just if you suspend logic as an atheist and you just believe anything that CNN, MSNBC, and the Washington Post and the New York Times publish or say, simply because a whole bunch of left-leaning publications are saying the same thing, so that must be reality. And the absurd, hilarious take is, well, reality has a bias. Yeah, Trump won every swing state. He won 77 million Americans. It's a modern-day landslide. Yeah, reality has a bias towards Trump. That's why he wins in the Supreme Court. But anyway, that's why he wins in elections. That's why he's a two-term president. After we had 4 years of Biden, yeah, reality has a bias. Jeffrey Epstein was a Democratic donor. He wasn't a donor of Trump. Trump was a billionaire. He didn't need anyone's money. Democratic and Republican politicians, lifelong politicians, need the money of others. The racket. See, there's two ways to make a great deal of money. One is to work hard, and whether you have a YouTube channel or a restaurant, or you work at a corporation, or whatever, you clean houses, whatever you do to work hard to make money, you're going to provide a service, labor, and you're going to get paid. That's capitalism. That's amazing. The way Democrats and some Republicans, but lifelong Democrats, what they've done, more so in the Democratic Party because it's a machine, is they make money through politics. That's their storefront. That's their, you could ask Nancy Pelosi, the greatest the stock market legend. Everything that she's ever invested in has gone up exponentially. It's fantastic. It couldn't be that she got information, insider trading information, could it? So this is Tammany Hall. You're talking about Tammany Hall from the late 1800s till today. And so that's the way Democrats make money, is like AOC, for example. Can you point to any legislation? Can any progressive point to any legislation that epitomizes their value system that AOC championed and it passed? Not one piece of legislation, and they had the House and Senate for 2 years. But anyway, let's continue.
All right. Well, Congressman, other huge news. President Trump is threatening a federal takeover of Washington, D.C.
So it's taking place slowly but surely. And I understand that, there's, it goes up and down. And look, there was the indictment of Comey and Letitia James. John Brennan will be indicted very soon. You will have conspiracy statutes leveled at everybody. I think Hillary Clinton will be indicted this year. A whole bunch of people will be indicted from the Florida grand jury. There's just so much evidence whistleblowers, evidence, declassified documents, things that nobody has seen. That John Ratcliffe at Central Intelligence and Tulsi Gabbard at the Director of National Intelligence, Kash Patel at FBI. So it's taking 10 years. Yeah, I understand. There's this belief that, okay, Pam Bondi is never going to get it done. But you look at what President Trump is doing the past year. You look at all the things that he's accomplished. Bringing manufacturing jobs is very important into the country to address the root causes of poverty. That's what the tariffs have done. Address the root causes of poverty. You want to bring supply chains back to the country. That's just one amazing thing. That's why he won in a landslide. Anyway, let's continue. It'll happen, ladies and gentlemen. It'll probably happen almost certainly this year.
Good morning, Maria.
I want to first talk about these subpoenas to Hillary and Bill Clinton. When are you expecting them to come in to testify under oath?
Something we hear all the time.
We've asked them to come in October. We've given them specific dates. What makes these subpoenas special and historical is that they came as a result of a bipartisan vote. The Democrats made a motion, like we knew they would, to subpoena the Epstein documents, which Republicans support. Scott Perry from Pennsylvania amended that motion to include subpoenas for both Bill and Hillary Clinton, as well as 6 former attorneys generals, and the Democrats voted for it. Now they're scared and trying to say they didn't vote for it, but they did. It's on record. And that helps us in court. If the Clintons try to fight this subpoena, which we presume they will, this subpoena came as a result of a bipartisan vote, which has never happened before in the House Oversight Committee. So we're looking forward to hearing from the Clintons. The American people want to know what went on Epstein Island. We know Clinton went there many times. We just want to ask Bill Clinton what he saw when he was there and who all was involved.
Well, I mean, look, there's a lot of information to be gained from an interview under oath with Hillary and Bill Clinton, that's for sure. Would you also get into Russia collusion?
Well, we would like to ask about that. I'm sure their lawyers are going to be negotiating the terms. The subpoena was issued a few days before the Russia collusion story really broke. But certainly we're going to ask as many questions as we can ask. This is an opportunity to get the Clintons under oath, which people have been trying to do for a long time. So hopefully we'll be able to do that, and we'll get answers to a lot of questions that the American people have.
So you.
There was never a moment in the past, there's never been a moment in modern political history where the Clintons were being forced to testify on a donor, a Democratic donor linked to atrocious, monstrous, heinous crimes. That would never happen at any other time period but today. And now there's a subpoena and they face contempt of Congress charges. This is just the tip of the iceberg. The thing with the DOJ and Lindsay Halligan and Pam Bondi and the Pyrrhic victory, because it's a Pyrrhic victory for James Comey and Letitia James. Yeah, they got a victory, initially. They're going to be the DOJ, the FBI, the CIA, all of these agencies leveled against Trump. They're going to be in Trump's administration and then J.D. Vance's administration the next 8 years. J.D. Vance goes 8 years, then the next 12 years. Okay, 11 years, because we just had 1 year of so that whole Democrats say, oh, when we get the White House back, oh, well, then who do you have? So again, Rome wasn't built in a day. You have the conspiracy statutes being leveled from the Florida case, and that's a completely different ballgame than very favorable judges. So when Democrats say, well, it's a conservative Supreme Court, they need to answer why they always side with Trump, because he's always on the side of the Constitution, apparently. But the same thing could be said. Why are lower courts routinely voting in the interest of Democrats? Why are there perhaps liberal judges in liberal courts convicting Trump or allowing cases to go to further with Trump, as opposed to what happened with Comey and Letitia James? They, stating that Lindsey Halligan was not appointed lawfully, but then again, that's being appealed. That's being appealed right now. So maybe she was appointed lawfully, and the lower court judges or the federal judges didn't interpret the law correctly. Anyway, the point is, you can't. It's always catch me if you can. The Democratic playbook is plausible deniability. Catch me if you can. You can't prove we're scheming, and everybody's a right-wing crazy monster if they point out corruption, waste, fraud, graft, bribery, all the Tammany Hall stuff that took place in the late 1800s that are still taking place now. Anyway, let's continue.
Say that they're going to be fighting this. You think this is going to go through the courts?
I would be shocked if it did not go to the courts. But again, one thing that stands out is this bipartisan vote. We've never had that. I've been chairman of the House Oversight Committee for a year and a half, Maria, and I've never lost a subpoena battle. This is the toughest battle that we're going to face is getting the Clintons in here. But again, that bipartisan vote, and I want to thank the Democrats on the House Oversight Committee for voting for that subpoena.
Well, I mean, look, another tough battle that you've got in front of you is getting to the bottom of President Biden's 4 years in office. And what was going on there? I mean,
so there's so many scandals. And again, Pam Bondi has had 1 year. She is doing a lot in terms of the Department of Justice. They've only had 1 year, ladies and gentlemen. And we just found this $8 billion in fraud. So we'll get to what's taking place in Minnesota. I think it's really important to realize that President Trump, you look at what he's done in 1 year. Immigration enforcement, which is a national security issue. Okay, it's simply creating hysteria and panic and putting people at risk. That's the Democratic playbook. But simply doing that is not going to. If you want to defund ICE, then push legislation. If a person thinks that immigration enforcement, that ICE agents or the agency are doing things that are immoral, then defund the program. But they keep saying, oh, these people are abusing their authority. They can't really name an example. Of course, nobody. Look, I feel for people, and God bless the hardworking undocumented immigrants. They work very, very hard. That's true. A great many, most are wonderful, beautiful, amazing people. Okay. Number one, ICE is going after people with criminal records that have committed heinous crimes. Number two, they're also going after people who have broke deportation statutes. Of course, nobody wants to leave. This is obvious. So what Democrats do is they take a snippet, somebody running away or somebody holding on to, a McDonald's counter saying, no, don't take me. It's like, yes, it's a terrible thing to watch. You want, a person has a life here. Okay. But there's a way to become a U.S. citizen. That is the entire point of what Trump is doing. What Democrats did is they said, okay, we'll just allow pretty much anyone and everyone. And we'll kind of have ICE enforce here and there. We'll kind of have immigration enforcement, but we'll do it not really with any, emphasis. And our main emphasis will be ensuring that, people get debit cards and that they're accepted and just basically there's protocol, there are laws in the books that Democrats agreed to. And then when they were in charge, they ignored all of that and said, oh, well, you know what we have to do? We're just going to allow millions upon millions, and that's just the way it is. And of course, it helps them in the census and helps them politically. And it's not about them being so moral and just and sweet and compassionate, because when they went to Martha's Vineyard, it was like game over. They tried. It was like they gave cereal. It was like a hilarious. Oh, here's some cereal. Can you please leave? Here's some like Cocoa Puffs. Please leave. Oh my God. So anyway, when push comes to shove, and then like you had DeSantis and others sending like planes and and they're like, oh my God, this is you're this is illegal. And so anyway, the point is, the reality is that there's protocol, there are laws in the book. If you want to become a citizen and immigrate to the country, you have to go through a certain process. Can't just walk through a border and say, okay, I'm here. I'm living here now from now on. That doesn't work in most other countries of the world. And so President Trump has kind of brought sanity and normality, which, by the way, is viewed as insanity to Democrats. Their status quo, the Democratic Party status quo, is, we're not going to enforce laws. We'll enforce some laws. We won't enforce other laws. And that's the status quo. And if it hurts the budget or hurts the deficit, at least we're getting an economic benefit. And you know what? Crime happens, and simply stating that a person who shouldn't have been here committed a heinous crime. Well, that crime could have, existed, any other way. So it's like the mindset is completely warped. But anyway, let's continue. My point is, it's only been a year. And people are giving up hope. There's going to be accountability. And do you think Donald Trump, we all have seen President Trump the past 10 years. You think he's the type of person to simply allow and ignore what has taken place with him? Anyway, let's continue.
In with broad investigatory authority to a number of the instances of wrongdoing that we've seen in Minneapolis. But we also want to expand this. We know that the fraud isn't just happening in Minneapolis, it's also happening in states like Ohio. It's happening in states like California. And so what we're doing in order to help coordinate this remarkable interagency effort from the Trump administration, but also to make sure that we prosecute the bad guys and do it as swiftly and efficiently as possible.
There's Vice President J.D. Vance.
J.D. Vance is going to be the next president after President Trump. There's nobody that can defeat J.D. Vance. Nobody. Okay? Any poll that shows that AOC defeats Vance, complete nonsense. It's complete nonsense. And the Democrats know this, but see, again, they don't really care. They function, the Democratic Party, the modern-day Democratic Party functions on momentary media support or fabricated outrage, lecturing, preaching, pontificating, trying to mock others, trying to denigrate and disparage others. Go to any left-leaning pundit with 1 million to 4 million subs. What are they talking about? Can you believe this person's out of his mind? Trump did this. Oh my God. Not legislation. Hey, we need to push single payer. They're not talking about that. They're not talking about that. They're not talking about pushing single payer healthcare. But let's continue.
Vance yesterday announcing a multi-state fraud task force in the wake of the Minnesota scandal. The federal government may have lost up to $520 billion, to fraud in federal programs between 2018 and 2022, according to the Office of Government Accountability. The House Oversight Committee holding a hearing which pressed Minnesota state lawmakers on the unraveling fraud case. My next guest is making criminal referrals from Minnesota Governor Tim Walz and Attorney General Keith Ellison during the hearing. She's joining me right now. Florida Congresswoman Anna Paulina Luna back with me. Congresswoman, good to see you. Thank you so much for being here. And
nice to see you.
You're making criminal referrals. Tell us what they did criminally.
Yeah, so I actually have already made those referrals. The DOJ did confirm receipt of them. We actually know, according to witness testimony and then a number of other pieces of evidence brought forward, that both individuals knew about the fraud, that they either shut down investigations or intentionally ignored the red flags that were coming out. And then also, too, there's also allegedly a recording with Attorney General Ellison that's actually stating that he would basically ignore recommendations of HHS if he could get support from the Somali community. And so what we know right now is both of these individuals, I don't think that they are the top dogs, but I do think that this is the tip of the iceberg. And again, the White House just announcing their task force to go after this. I mean, I do think that this is widespread, but also I want to point out the fact that when you have elected officials, specifically, for example, in Minnesota, with the governor and the attorney general that are knowingly ignoring this is happening right underneath their noses. They're telling people, or they are firing people that are speaking out about it. It's completely wrong, and this is corruption. I don't care if this was just a Democrat. I don't care if it was a Republican. I would have the same response. And I do look forward to what the investigation yields by the Department of Justice. And then I also look forward to the Department of Justice bringing criminal charges, because I think, as you're seeing now, Maria, they definitely exist.
So again, I mean, there's been a system in place the past 10, 20 years to protect people like Tim Walz and others. It's a system. You see this. You have even a judge in Wisconsin that was indicted and convicted on trying to impede ICE agents. This is entrenched within the political reality. The Democrats and Trump Republicans see national security, for example, in a completely different way. Okay, enforcing immigration laws is not national security to Democrats. Preventing the flow of illegal narcotics into the country is not national security. Preventing waste and fraud is not national security. Ensuring that undocumented people who potentially commit heinous crimes or who are removed from the country is not a national security issue for Democrats. Tariffs, not a national security issue on the world stage, to ensure that illegal narcotics don't come into the country, to ensure that supply chains are brought back into the country so that people don't get on social safety nets. They don't need SNAP programs. The same Democrats that say you're cutting funding on SNAP are the same Democrats that don't understand if you bring jobs back, less people will be on SNAP. This isn't rocket science. These are all national security issues. Greenland, the acquisition, the purchase of, is a huge national security issue. And that has nothing to do with the military. That would never happen in terms of a military intervention. That'd be impossible. Denmark is a very close ally and a wonderful country and a NATO member. We would just buy it if they're selling it, which, if they're not selling it now, if the price is, a certain price, they might be interested. 100,000 per citizen in Greenland, which is what I talk about every evening because it's really interesting. Anyway, let's continue.
And you think that they were ignoring it because they didn't want to upset their voters, because it's an important voting bloc there in Minnesota, the Somali community?
Most certainly, but I also think that there is likely, and I think that this is going to be something for probably forensic financial investigators with the Department of Justice. It is likely, too, that they were getting campaign contributions on the back end from people that were contributing or tied to some of this fraud. And then also, too, to go a step further, what I find even more disturbing, though, is that when people try to speak out against it, they were silenced. And so this is obviously something that needs to be investigated further. I do look forward to, again, finding the results of that investigation. And we do have public support for those criminal referrals, so the DOJ now has them.
All right, let me move on to what's going on across the world. The Senate advancing a bipartisan resolution yesterday to block President Trump from using military force within or against Venezuela until he gets prior approval from Congress moving forward. 5 Republicans joined all 47 Democrats on the vote. So I want to get your take on that, but also what's going on in Iran.
So where were the Democrats when President Obama, 16 years ago, went into Libya with a NATO intervention? Where were the Democrats against this? Oh, that's right. They were nowhere to be found. But let's continue.
Dollars in fraud, stolen money, scant accountability over many years. But not only does the state AG, Keith Ellison, take zero responsibility, He actually tries to minimize it.
Are you confident your office has done enough?
Of course, we've done enough, and we're doing more every single day. This is a political matter. This is not a serious thing.
That was not a serious thing. Of course, it's not serious to him because it was his constituents getting the cash. It was a sickening Democrat slush fund courtesy of the American taxpayers. So in hearings on Capitol Hill today, witnesses blew the lid off what looks like a flagrant cover-up.
You're saying that there was a political incentive to cover up widespread Somali fraud. Is that right?
100%.
Got it. Let me ask all three of you. Did the Waltz administration and Democrats intentionally, in your opinion, overlook this fraud while it was happening for political gain? I'll start with you, Ms. Robbins.
Absolutely.
What we know, the rot in Minnesota runs deep.
I've met with many whistleblowers who have spoken about how they were told that they would be demoted or reassigned. I know of people who were reassigned. We also know that they were surveilled in their place of work when people thought they might be the quote leaker. Their email and their chat functions were surveilled electronically for words like fraud or whistleblower or compliance or overbilling.
I hope Pam Bondi was watching this today. In the end, this was about a pattern of corruption. New immigrants who believe that they're entitled to rip off their new country, either by bilking the Medicaid system or milking the system for federal benefits.
Does large-scale Somali immigration make Minnesota stronger or weaker?
Certainly stronger.
Certainly stronger. Do you know what percentage of Somali-headed households in Minnesota are on food stamps?
No.
What percentage of Somali-headed households in Minnesota are on Medicaid?
I don't know.
It's 73%. What percentage of Somali-headed households are on welfare in general?
I don't know.
It's 81%. What percentage of working-age Somalians who have been in the U.S. for 10 years or more, how many of them speak English very well?
I don't know.
About half. The answer is about half. That seems pretty low, doesn't it? That doesn't sound like something that makes our country stronger to me, and I think most Americans would agree with me on that.
Yeah, what does that guy?
And my vantage point is God bless the Somali community. There are veterans, there are business owners, there are people who've risked their lives for the country. And to paint an entire community with the same brush is not good politically, and it doesn't make sense, not logical. The stats you just heard, they could be true, and you know what? There could be other factors. There's maybe context that needs to be added. There are issues, obviously, with in Minnesota pertaining to fraud. It's a Democratic Party scandal. I don't view it as a Somali scandal. I view it as a Democratic Party scandal because you have the same things taking place potentially in Chicago, in New York, and other places, in other cities that run by Democrats, where there's a political machine. So you can't give Democrats the ability to circumvent the reality that this is taking place throughout the country. Anyway, let's continue.
Now, here to react, Kristen Robbins, Minnesota State Rep and chair of the Minnesota Fraud Committee, representative, even talking to whistleblowers, tracking where the money is going. For our viewers tonight who've been hearing this now for weeks and weeks, what's the most shocking thing that you've learned?
The most shocking thing we've heard from whistleblowers is that the Criminal Investigation Division of DHS was told they couldn't do it anymore, and that they were going to not be able to refer criminal cases to the BCA. And that
what is that BCA?
Bureau of Criminal Apprehension. And instead, they were going to look at it as overbilling. And there was a committee formed to decide if the overbilling would be recouped.
Keith Ellison, the Attorney General of the state, said, of course they've done everything they can. And he went on to say, this is all political. It's not serious.
I would say he's the only one in the state that feels that way. Minnesotans are furious about the billions of dollars of their tax dollars that have been stolen and used for overseas property in Kenya and Turkey and mansions and fancy cars. Minnesotans are furious. And Keith Ellison has turned a blind eye for years. We have credible whistleblower reports where he ghosted people. And they finally came to us because they hadn't gotten any response.
So they reach out to him?
Yes.
And then don't you love when people do that, by the way? You send them an email. You know they've read it. And then you just, okay. So he's doing like the mean girl thing on this, correct?
Yes, well, that's what the whistleblowers tell us. They reached out to the DHS OIG, they reached out to Ellison's office, and we were their third stop before they came and got some help.
So it's not just the Minnesota taxpayers, it's all of us, correct? 'Cause these are federal tax dollars going to Minnesota. So we've seen Minnesota, and as you know, I have close ties to the state, been there so many times over 20 years, but they keep electing these crazy Democrats. And for the life of me, like, what are they getting out of it? People are...
Because it's an atheistic political religion. Okay? It's an atheistic political religion that is fueled by overwhelming media support, media narrative, people like Jimmy Kimmel in Hollywood. If you are a 90s Democrat that has really, like a 90s, Trump is like a 90s Democrat, okay? Trump says things and he does things that 90s Democrats would find just fine. If you were a 90s Democrat and you view the Democratic Party as your football team or your allegiance in terms of like tribalism, political tribalism, and you don't really like what's taking place with the Democratic Party, but every single day the past 10 years, you have read and heard that Trump is a menace to the world and to the universe, that he wants to devour democracy, that he tried to foment a rebellion, that he worked with the Russians to defeat Hillary, that he was a convicted felon because he paid Stormy, which he could have done with dollar bills, which would have been just fine because it wasn't a campaign finance violation. That'll be overturned by the Supreme Court. But anyway, if you have been inundated every single day, and by the way, that kind of bolsters your existing, worldview that you had in the 90s and when you were a Democrat, even though the 90s Democrats have like nothing to do, like they don't correlate at all with today's Democrats. But if you were a 90s Democrat, you're a Democrat your whole life, and you're told for the past 10 years that Trump is the end of democracy, the end of the world, what's easier for you to actually say, nah, Trump ain't so bad, and then have your entire network on Facebook or family, people, friends disown you, or you to just go along and say, maybe that's true. In fact, I believe it. All the smart people are saying the same thing. So you vote Democrat. Then there's the moral component. You're indoctrinated to believe that voting against Trump is moral, that Trump is immoral, that Democratic Party policies are moral. So morality is no longer, what you learn at church or, your religion or your belief in God or the afterlife or, what would God think? Nobody says, when they despise Trump, nobody says, well, what does God think about this? They say, well, what would my friends think? What do I think about what Trump is doing? It's completely immoral. You think God would find it immoral or bad or a sin to enforce existing immigration laws? They're existing laws. You either repeal deportation statutes and defund ICE, or you keep the deportation statutes and you keep existing immigration laws and have ICE enforce them. It's one or the other, not just sitting on the fence with Biden, allowing millions to come in and, we're going to try our best. But, everyone knows that mentality. That's why President Trump won in 2024. That's why he won in a landslide. But morality, nobody thinks about morality. The average, wonderful, morally superior, highly educated Democrat, Trump is an authoritarian, a tyrant. It's a completely ignorant take of history. They don't really understand what actual tyrants did. Maybe they forgot, they never read a book, or maybe they did and they just want to create hysteria. He's not a tyrant at all. He wins in the Supreme Court 94% of the time. He won after 4 years of Biden, who was supposed to be the adult in the room. And so, but it's like it's an atheistic political religion. People vote Democrat because if they don't, they will lose a lot of friends. I lost 10 lifelong friends. My only sin was voting Trump. That's it. I had people, beautiful, wonderful, amazing people. Oh, I can't be your friend anymore. I was like, what? For what? Why? Oh, you're voting Trump. It's immoral. Okay. What? Because I want a completely different foreign policy, because I want a different tax policy, because I want an end to Bush, Cheney, Rumsfeld, and Obama never-ending wars. Because tariffs are a very good thing, bringing back manufacturing jobs. We had record low poverty with Trump. We had record highs in household median income before Democrats and media and experts shut down the U.S. economy because they were, all the smart people said to do so. But anyway, that's how you go. Like, I was the biggest Bernie Sanders booster on the internet. And then I voted Trump. You go from Bernie Sanders to Trump because you want somebody to completely alter the status quo in a way where we don't send Americans to never-ending counterinsurgency conflicts. I am against never-ending military warfare, counterinsurgency conflicts, guerrilla warfare. I don't want Americans sent to never-ending wars. That's how one of the reasons you go from Bernie Sanders. I wrote in the Federalist, you could type in H.A. Goodman Federalist, why Bernie Sanders supporters should vote Trump in 2020. I tried to show this to people. They didn't care. I explained. There's actually a direct line between 2016 Bernie Sanders and President Trump. Bernie Sanders today is completely different than he was. But then again, it's like trying to explain quantum physics to a house cat. It's impossible. It will never happen. So I'm like, look, Trump is actually really good for the economy, renegotiating trade deals, actually better for the working class than Democrats. We had record low poverty, all of these things. They, peace deals that he tried to negotiate. It just, all they heard was Trump, Russia. Trump is mean, horrible. He says bad things. He's a bigot. All of these. That's it. That's all they heard. He said both sides. Yet another hoax. They just believed media lies. That's why trust in media is an all-time low. And you try to explain this, and it's impossible because people are so indoctrinated. And I learned something also. It just takes about 3 weeks to a month to 2 months of never-ending media coverage. And that person that you think you knew, you might not know anymore. Some people are they think that they're lofty and intelligent, and some people are so easily indoctrinated. It's unbelievable. Sometimes it takes 1 year, 2 years of constant media narrative. And suddenly it's I can't be your friend anymore. I can't, or a family member. I put family and friends above politics. Politics is not, the be-all, end-all in terms of morality or whatever. If your life is the ladies at the View, that says something about your life. But anyway, let's continue.
Leaving the state, businesses that used to flock to the state, either high taxes, terrible regulations, or stuff like this, or now more crime, leaving the state. So can we expect a political turnaround because of what we've discovered?
Absolutely. Minnesotans now see the scale of this fraud and they are horrified and they want change. We're not as blue as people think. The legislature in the House is tied and the Senate's only Democrat by 1 vote. Minnesotans want change. They want leaders who are going to stop the fraud and get back to public safety and good schools and ability to prosper.
Oh, it's just one of the most beautiful states ever. I just love it so much. Now, Ellison, by the way, took aim at you directly today. Did you see this on Twitter?
I haven't.
X. Kristen Robbins, the Minnesota Fraud and Oversight Committee chair, has resulted in 15 meetings, but 0 passed bills and 0 cases of fraud. Wow, sounds like you don't do anything.
Oh, my goodness. I mean, that's ridiculous. So we've had all these hearings where we've grilled agency officials, we've exposed new areas of fraud, and then when we get an investigation to a certain point, we turn it over to the Office of Legislative Auditor and the U.S. Attorney. So those cases are in the pipeline for investigation by law enforcement. And we expect additional charges in many areas.
So he would prefer that you not present any information
But there's been, I mean, has Keith Ellison, does he not know that there's been like 90 convictions already? So there's been 90 convictions already in Minnesota.
To the authorities, and that nothing is uncovered. I mean, I guess that's what he's saying, because to me, this is not a partisan issue. It shouldn't be. This should be an outrage across that state.
Richard, cocaine's.
And across the country. And it's happening in other states as well.
Right. No, it is not partisan. No matter what your political affiliation, Minnesotans are furious.
And if he were smart, he would be just as outraged as you are and be working with you.
So, like, for example, this fraud in Minnesota, we weren't even talking about this, but it's happening. It's so rampant. It is so rampant. It's kind of like when Doge found 200+ billion, and then the media was, oh my God, well, it's not really fraud. Actually, it wasn't. He didn't save any money. Actually, he just cut contracts. And we don't know how much the government agencies would have used. Well, if they were given $20 million for this, and they weren't going to allot all the money. They could have actually had a surplus here and there. And it's like he saves $200 billion, and we find out that all of this money is going to really bizarre, warped, causes throughout the world in our name through USAID. And then you get the estimates from the highly educated. Well, this is 600,000 people around the world lost their lives because the USAID was defunded. Well, morally superior liberal, why don't you then push for a foreign aid package? Have AOC or all the other morally superior Democrats look at what USAID, how many lives were saved around the world, and make that a priority. Oh, these estimates are more political than they are real. Oh, okay. Because you could go ahead and, for example, they say USAID, the defunding, caused hundreds of thousands of people to lose their lives around the world. Okay, if that's true, then Democrats have a case to push foreign aid package legislation in Congress. Why don't they do that? Because it might simply be all public relations. And these estimates are often wrong. You could see the estimates 5 years ago, 6 years ago, that shut down the global economy.
Let $9 billion in fraud occur. Mr. Hudson.
In my opinion, because it was politically beneficial to Democrats. Again, the Somali community is a huge constituency group.
Can Governor Walz actually be trusted to defend Minnesotans when he allowed fraud to fester for his entire tenure as governor?
Mr. Chairman, if Governor Walz was serious about stopping fraud, he would have done it in 2019 when he took office. He has done nothing other than appoint commissioners that suppressed fraud and retaliated against their own employees.
But not a single Democrat requested to waive on the committee from the state of Minnesota. And there is one member of the Minnesota delegation, Representative Omar, who coincidentally is of Somali descent, did not request to be in this hearing. I will publicly invite her to come to the next hearing.
Now, House Oversight Committee Chairman James Comer is here with more. So you said this is the tip of the iceberg. We learned there's a political motive and incentive behind it. And Walz was warned repeatedly. Do you have any doubt all of that's true?
No, it's 100% true. Look, these state legislators are well respected. They took an oath. They went under oath. If they lied, then they commit perjury. No one is accusing them of lying in Minnesota. They said also that whistleblowers have been coming forward for years, not weeks, not months, but years, trying to warn Tim Walz and the Attorney General Keith Ellison.
So Tim Walz and others, what they do is, this is the playbook. There's brave people in Minnesota, like the people who were, you've seen here, brave whistleblowers, lawmakers, and they inform Walz and others that there's rampant corruption. Then it's the plausible deniability kicks in, just like when Comey says, well, gosh, we had to investigate. I mean, my goodness, we didn't know what was going on. We were given information in the form of a dossier, which we really didn't use. And, well, Russia could have influenced, and in fact they did. And we had to find out if Trump was working with Russia. And they create this narrative, and it's plausible deniability. Well, we didn't know it was a hoax. So then they do the same thing with fraud. Well, we didn't know the extent. I mean, we were just doing our jobs. And, oh, we're finding out now. How do you can't prove that Tim Walz or other Democrats deliberately try to stop investigations. That's going to be difficult in court. And so they hide behind that. But if you have overwhelming evidence that there was a concerted effort to not investigate rampant fraud, I mean, these are crimes. But anyway, Politico, New York Post, Washington Examiner, 17 hours ago. This is not, wishful thinking. It's slowly taking place. Anyway, hit subscribe. Be here later for the live stream. Go to H.A. Goodman's other channel right now for the upload. Thanks, everybody. Please subscribe.